Imagine you are designing a cloud application and you see two services, AWS API Gateway and Azure Application Gateway. They both have the word gateway in their names, so it is very easy to assume they perform the same job. But do they? This is where the confusion normally starts. On the AWS side, an application sends API requests through AWS API Gateway. On the Azure side, website traffic passes through Azure Application Gateway before reaching the application servers. They both sit in front of an application, but they handle very different responsibilities. Let us start with AWS API Gateway. A mobile app, website, or another system sends an API request. API Gateway receives that request, checks where it needs to go, and forwards it to a backend service, such as AWS Lambda, an EC2 application, or a container. Its main job is to help you build, secure, and manage APIs. Azure Application Gateway focuses mainly on web traffic. A user opens your website, and the request first reaches the application gateway. The gateway checks the request and routes it to one of the available application servers. This makes it useful for load balancing, web traffic routing, and protecting web applications. So, here is the easiest way to remember the difference. AWS API Gateway helps you create, secure, and manage APIs. Azure Application Gateway helps you route, balance, and protect web application traffic. They may have similar names, but they solve different problems. However, knowing the main difference is only the beginning. Each service also gives you different options, and choosing the correct option depends on the type of application you are building. Let us start with AWS API Gateway. When creating an AWS API Gateway, you first need to choose the type of API you want to build. For most simple web, mobile, or serverless applications, an HTTP API is a good place to start. It is designed for standard HTTP endpoints, works well with Lambda and other web services, and is generally simpler and more affordable. Choose a REST API when you need more advanced API management features. This can include API keys, usage plans, request validation, caching, and more detailed control over how requests and responses are handled. Then we have WebSocket APIs. These are designed for real-time, two-way communication, where the server may need to send information back to the user without waiting for a new request. Common examples include live chat, notifications, multiplayer applications, and real-time dashboards. The important thing to remember is that API Gateway does not host your application code. Your code still runs in Lambda, containers, EC2, or another backend service. API Gateway simply provides the controlled entry point. AWS separates its gateway options by the type of API communication you need. Azure Application Gateway takes a different approach. Instead of choosing between REST, HTTP, and WebSocket APIs, you choose how much web traffic management and protection your application requires. With Azure Application Gateway, the main production choices are standard_v2 and WAF_v2. Choose standard_v2 when you need intelligent web traffic routing and load balancing. For example, you may want traffic for one website path to go to an app service, while another path goes to an application running on AKS or virtual machines. Standard_v2 can also handle TLS termination, backend health checks, and automatic scaling. Choose WAF_v2 when you need the same routing capabilities, but also want a web application firewall protecting the application. This is usually the stronger choice for public websites, customer portals, online shops, or applications handling sensitive information. Just like API Gateway, Azure Application Gateway does not host your application. It sits in front of App Service, AKS, virtual machines, or another backend, and decides where each web request should go. Now we know their main responsibilities and the options available within each service. The next question is what actually happens to a request as it moves through these gateways, and which components make that journey possible.